Is your goal a twofer? If it is, you are making it harder than it needs to be to try to achieve that goal. My name is Jean Moroney. I'm president of Thinking Directions, and I'd like to talk to you about why it really is not a good idea to plan to kill two birds with one stone. What is a twofer? A twofer is a goal or a project that you undertake because you want to achieve two co-equal benefits. Co-equal, that's the critical thing, that you really are trying to get two benefits from this. So for example, sometimes people say, oh, I want to get on a new routine or a new schedule. And what they mean by that is that they want to sleep regularly and they want to, say, meet deadlines because they think a regular routine is what's needed for that. But they haven't really thought about how these two things interact. It's two benefits and it's kind of been packaged together as one goal, but really it's two separate problems and two separate things that need to be addressed. Or another really common one is, oh, I want better health. Sounds like a single goal, right? But what the person means from that is, I want to start exercising and I want to lose weight. And that is, each of those could be a goal. Now, I'm not saying you can't have two benefits, that you can't get two benefits. What I'm saying is, if you conceptualize your project or your goal as one thing when it's really two things, that's what gets you into trouble. That gets you into a lot of trouble. And the reason is that those two issues will conflict at some point. And because you're thinking of them as part of one goal, it then starts to get extremely frustrating to achieve that goal. So for example, the deadline and the sleep one is really easy. Something will happen, there'll be some delay, and you will be faced with the choice. You're behind, you've got a deadline. Do you stay up late? Are you going to make the deadline, or are you going to stick with your sleep plan? Or, the other version of that, you wake up and you're tired. Do you stay in bed and sleep, or do you get up to try to make your deadline? And the reason you think that you can have these two things at once is you think you have enough time to be able to do the sleep and meet the deadline, and it's just a matter of a little willpower here and there to make sure that things stay on the schedule that they're supposed to have. And it may be that, most of the time this isn't a problem, and that's great. But what are you going to do when they're in conflict? A goal is supposed to guide and motivate you. And if you haven't actually addressed some internal conflict in the goal, instead, when you see that it's either or, you're going to get a little paralyzed. You're going to feel guilty, whichever one you do. If you don't sleep so that you can finish the deadline, or you do sleep and don't get up and whatever, you will feel guilty about that. And you can get into this, the result is you feel pressure to do both of them. And you feel guilty whichever way you choose. And this is what creates a burnout cycle. This creates a vicious cycle where it feels like whatever you do, you lose something bad happens, and that is very demotivating. And in the end, if you get burned out, you're not going to be following the schedule at all. The same thing with the better health goal. This one, I think lots of people have seen this. It seems like exercise and eat right? Exercise and lose weight. Seems like they should go together. And if you have that as really two separate things, I need to go to the gym and I need to go on this diet, both of those are going to take a lot of willpower. And they're going to be using up willpower. There is a limit to how much extra effort you can put in. And what's going to happen is one or the other of them, you're going to lose, you're going to drop it. That's what's going to happen. And again, you're going to feel guilty. It's going to create a burnout cycle. Now, I'm not saying this is absolutely predictable, but it's pretty predictable. I mean, it depends a little bit on it's very individual. It depends on where you are in this. But a big indication that you're going to have a problem is if you're conceptualizing it, thinking you can get both these benefits and, oh, that would be great. So I think this is something that the solution is you really need to look at that conflict. What are you going to do if, in fact, these two values that you want, these two benefits that you want, appear to be in conflict? And if you do that in advance, you wind up setting the goal quite differently. You wind up unifying the goal. This is something I coach people on all of the time. So for example, I've had both of these issues. I want to have good sleep and meet deadlines. So what have I done? I mean, the first thing that I did was I decided that the root cause was sleep, because one of the reasons I had trouble meeting deadlines is I would work incredibly hard for 4 hours. I put out a lot of brain activity in the work that I do. And then I would need a nap, and I would just crash in the afternoon for an hour or two. And this was really limiting how much work time I had. And of course, if I then tried to make it up in the evening, that affected my sleep. It was a vicious cycle. And so I decided that the fundamental, and this is sometimes what you decide one of these two is actually fundamentally more important. And in this case, I decided sleep was actually the issue, and I faced this issue. This is any problem you have, facing reality, facing the problem, really embracing, this is really a problem, is a huge part of the solution. And in this case, for me, a huge part of the solution was to realize I needed to schedule more time for sleep. And I now have from 10 p.m. to 9 a.m. blocked off for my going to bed routine, sleeping, and my waking up routine to get going, to get at my desk at 9 a.m., which is at least an hour, probably 2 hours longer than I think it should be. And the truth is, I wake up in the middle of the night and I often can't get back to sleep for an hour or two. And I'm working that problem. But in the meantime, I really need that big a window to make sure I get 7.5 hours of sleep. If I get 7.5 hours of sleep, I don't need a nap in the afternoon, even if I work my little tail off. And I finally bit the bullet that I really needed to do that. And in fact, I'm confident that this is eventually going to help me solve the problem of waking up in the middle of the night. But in the meantime, I'm prioritizing sleep. And that really did make a difference, because what it did is it made it clear how much time I have during the day and how much brain power I have during the day. And now I can actually plan how many focus time blocks I have for the business work that needs to get done on a schedule. And I'm getting much better at that. That's another whole story. But by figuring out the root cause of the problem and figuring out that one needed to be solved before the other could be solved, I am getting both. I am working to get both. In the other case, the diet and exercise, sometimes what you need is a creative solution for how you can get both, but this is going to reconceive your goal. So the way I'm working that particular problem is I have an initiative to substitute 3-minute walks for emotional eating. Now again, I looked at my situation. I think the only reason I need to diet is because when something doesn't go well, I'm tempted to go eat something, right? And I've managed to limit what it is I eat, but the real way you lose weight is by not eating as much. And that's clear to me. And the only time I eat too much is emotional eating. And I realized I figured this out, right? But I needed some practical way to make this work. And it occurred to me, the thing to do is to do what I call a 3-minute walk. You can read about this on my blog. It's a particular route that I have. And on that walk, I think about, what am I feeling? I face the feelings. What am I feeling? I face the facts. What is the situation? I remind myself not to melt down. It's never as bad as it seems. And then I have a little process called have my own back, where I figure out what am I going to do constructively right now. And this is something, if I can catch myself wanting to do emotional eating, and if I can substitute a 3-minute walk, first of all, it will help me deal with the root cause of the emotional eating. Second of all, it will get me a little exercise. Third of all, a little walk is energizing, and you do feel better. Emotional eating is to feel better. So I'm working this. Now, this is a change in a habit. I need to learn to catch the emotional eating more consistently. I do it some. And remember, this is the thing I do in that situation. But you see, I've integrated the goal here, but it's now a very, very different goal. It's not a health goal per se. It's actually it's an emotional resilience goal, is what I would say. Now, how do you do this? This is extremely individual. It depends on exactly where you are. For example, I actually solved the sleep schedule. I actually solved that a while ago, and now I have a life and order goal, which sounds like it's 5 things. I want to sleep well. I'm not going to rattle it off exactly, but sleep well. I want social relationships that are open, honest, equal. I want recreation time. I want to build my business and teach a lot of people. It's everything, and I want to make money, right? So I've got a whole bunch of things that I actually am at a point here where I think the critical thing is getting systems in place so that no one of these stops me from doing any other of these. And it's a systematization goal. And the reason I can do that is because I've done work on each of the other parts. And so now I can just try to figure out how they fit together. But I've done that by a lot of prioritizing. So for example, sleep is that is the absolute top priority. Nothing interferes with sleep. Second top priority is my time with my husband. We live in the same house. We both work at home. We see each other every day, but I need to spend time with him in the evenings. That's important. And the way I've worked it is, I have a 3-hour block devoted to this, but half of it if I'm in a crunch, half of it I consider free time that can be co-opted by something else. So I never don't spend time with my husband, but sometimes I spend half the free time or half the time with him that I would normally spend. And then, the third priority behind that is my top work priority, which is a business goal, which I can, And then the fourth thing is the book. So the book can sometimes be preempted when the deadline for the top business goal I'm having trouble with, but otherwise the book can't be preempted. And then everything else is below that. So you see, I've actually worked out the priorities. I've worked out how I'm going to deal with the conflict. This is so important. It's so important to have figured out in advance, there is going to be a conflict from time to time, particularly, things happen, right? I mean, things happen. There are going to be conflicts from time to time. And by figuring those out for you, based on your priorities, your values, then you are not fazed by running into conflict. You know what to do. You don't have to stop and figure out, oh no, what I'm going to do. You don't lurch into something. You don't do something that would not be good for you. And I think the real key to this is, can you name the benefit you're going to get from your goal or your project in one word? So my life and order goal, the one word is systematization. And for my substitute 3-minute walk for emotional eating, it's one concept, emotional resilience. Resilience, if I had to say one word, that's what I mean by resilience. I mean the mental kind, not the physical kind, but that's it. And then for the, when I had the sleep, no naps, the one word for that, I think would be alertness, really. That was really what it was. It was alertness. I needed to be alert during the day. And I think that can help tell you that you don't have a twofer and that you've done enough thinking about the potential conflicts that you should be able to just pursue your goal. So if you're interested in more on this, first of all, I wrote an article. It turns out I have a lot to say about twofers. I wrote actually 2 articles related to this. The first one is out, and you can find it in the notes. And I coached this in the launch program. Getting the goal right is the most difficult thing. If you have a major goal, getting the goal unified so it's pointing you in one direction and it really can guide that action when you're stepping up for some new initiative, that is the key thing. And that is the thing I start by coaching people on in the launch and then continue coaching them on the launch when the inevitable conflicts arise. So that is another way. And of course, all of that material is also available to regular Thinking Lab members, just with less coaching from me, less direct coaching from me. All right, well, I hope this has been helpful. I hope I've convinced you if your goal is a twofer, it's really worth figuring out how do you unify that goal.